because now we're going to get into Sweet Tooth. And what does Sweet Tooth have to do with all this? Well, once again, we have this natural component mixed with man. And now we can start to understand these TV series like Sweet Tooth. So let me give you the backdrop of Sweet Tooth. And I've got some clips pulled up from it here. So there's a spam-demic that causes people's nervous systems to malfunction. Does this sound familiar? Now, I almost didn't decode this series, but there were so many people that asked me to do it, I had to. So I decided to do it. I'm only on episode 3, so there's more to come after today's decode. But basically, these people come down with this nervous system malfunction, and it causes their little pinky finger to start twitching. And that's the telltale sign that you've come down with what they call the sick. And their little pinky finger starts convulsing and twitching. There's also an infertility aspect to Sweet Tooth as well. And then there's a phase where all new children that are born are hybrids. They're half animal and half human chimeras. Here you see the twitching pinky finger, and the woman sees it, and then it says emergency, alert, stay indoors, isolate yourself from others. Now, I don't tend to do decodes, after the fact decodes, unless it's very powerful and I think we can glean more from it. This Sweet Tooth series would have been way better had it came out in like 2018. Then it would have been a slam dunk, right? And much more powerful to help convince people of how programming works, how the enemy uses Hollywood to pre-program you for events that he has planned for humanity. So then these half human, this is Sweet Tooth here, half human, half animal hybrids are born. Now, Sweet Tooth, it's a sad story, of course. His father takes him into the wilderness because these hybrids become hunted. They're blamed for the spam-demic. They're blamed for it, and they're hunted. They're also hunted for another reason, which we'll get into a little bit later in the story. But Sweet Tooth has to live alone because his father was killed, and he's courageous, and his name is Sweet Tooth. Now, here's the interesting thing. His name is Gus. His nickname is Sweet Tooth. I saw some channels had done, talked a little bit about Sweet Tooth, trying to decode it, but there's so much more to this, you guys. Gus backwards is S-U-G, which is the first 3 letters of the word sugar. So what this involves is what's called a secret sauce. They harvest it from their pineal glands. You're going to hear it in their own words as we continue on. Now, understand as we get into the description of Sweet Tooth that the concept of a family tree relates back to this idea that we as humanity are little trees. This is a biblical concept as well. There are several places in the Bible that describe people as trees. Of course, Sweet Tooth has branches or horns. And understand that the merging of man with nature in our fall from perfection is indicated by these bodies that blend with nature, as we talked about earlier in the show, having beast-like qualities in our nature. This isn't how I believe God created us. Like I said, we experienced hunger, pain, thirst, all these things that normally animals would only experience. We experienced that once we fell, but it wasn't like that before. Now, here's another aspect of this that I haven't heard many other channels talk about in decoding Sweet Tooth, and that is the Cernunnos, horned god of the trees. This is Cernunnos. Of course, the Hadron Collider is named after this god of the forest, Cernunnos. He's the god of the trees, and everything always seems to point back to him. as we see in this carving. He's sitting in the Baphomet pose. Wow. Now, Cernunnos also dovetails into the god Pan. They're pretty much the same god. Pan is also a horned god. But they're pretty much the same creature, this forest god. Now, here's where things get crazy, because in this next scene, he lights a fire and he burns his toys out of frustration because he had just lost his father and he was just frustrated. He's trying to remember the things his dad taught him, but he can't, so he burns this fire. And immediately, you'll see it too, this is actually the thumbnail of this live show, it reminded me of a Masonic secret society, the Order of St. Hubertus. Watch. The fire lights up, and they frame the fire between his horns, just like the Order of St. Hubertus. I put a side-by-side here so you could see it. This is their logo. The buck with Christ crucified in the center of his horns. This is exactly what they were getting at here. You can almost make out a cross in the fire, actually. Almost. I mean, I see these things. Other people don't sometimes. But a lot of this stuff is manifesting on a spiritual level. So I don't blame people if they don't see it. But when you have eyes to see, all this stuff comes to the forefront. So, what is the Order of St. Hubertus? Let's take a look. This is it here. This is depicted in a stained glass window. The Order of St. Hubertus. Now, this gained national attention when a particular Supreme Court Justice, Scalia, died on Lupercalia. I'll say that again. Justice Scalia died on Lupercalia, which is a February ancient pagan Roman fertility ritual. He died while at a hunting lodge, and apparently the people that he was with were all part of the Order of St. Hubertus. They still won't confirm that he was part of it. My guess is that he probably was. And the circumstances under which he died was very mysterious. Some kind of suffocation or a pillow. Now, here's the weird thing, is that Sweet Tooth is all about the hunters. And of course, the Order of St. Hubertus is the Order of Hunters. And they're all about hunting, fishing. Here's the Bohemian Club. This is a secret society. As many of you know, almost all secret societies come out of the Masons. Hunting, fishing. There's like even an optician, which is looking at the eyes, which is weird as well. This is all about hunting. Now, in the Sweet Tooth series, these hybrids are hunted down. And from whatever they get, they actually tap into their pineal gland and their bone marrow, and they come up with a cure. They're actually even blamed for the spamdemic. Now, we know that the Order of St. Hubertus was the patron saint of hunting and fishing, math, opticians, metalworks as well. Does all this sound familiar? He cured rabies with a key. Let's go back up here. Here's Hubertus here, from which the order was named. He cured rabies with a key. I'm going to find that on the page here so you can see this. What is this about? Now, remember, we had identified the T-Man, Donald himself, as the man with the key, Janus. See, all these demons they syncretize with one another. This is all manifesting on a spiritual level. And we've also talked about the association of rabies with the spamdemic and how that links into all this. And how rabies was the source of the zombie apocalypse that I believe is coming. It's already kind of here as people have begun to lose their minds, follow the turd immunity, mindset. So St. Hubertus healed people of rabies with a key. And of course, these are two subjects that we've talked about at length on this channel. So I was shocked to see both of these aspects emerge here. Now, this story of St. Hubertus sounds good and righteous. There's actually a part in here that talks about his spiritual conversion and how all this went down. He was tracking a buck in the forest. He was about to take it, and then a crucifix appeared between the horns of the buck, as you can see here. And he heard God's voice telling him to give his life to Jesus and also to follow ethical hunting rules. Now, these hunting rules are still in effect today. If you're a hunter, you've probably heard of St. Hubertus, about how to hunt, certain rules about, not taking a mother who has children so she can continue to feed her young, ethical dispatching of the wildlife, different types of rules. But here's the problem I have with this, and that is that it's a secret society. We know that all of these secret societies come out of the Masons. We know they use God's holy word. We know they use Christ, and they flip the script on it. We saw this with the Georgia Guidestones. The people that helped build the Guidestones, that were the locals, that helped get the granite and all this, they were told by this R.C. Christian that he was a Christian and he loved God. As they were etching into the stone that they would maintain a population below 500 million, and they still believed that this person was a man of God. Do you see how they try to use God? This is why you see a lot of these rock artists wear crosses around their neck while doing the worst things ever. So let's get back into this, because anywhere the sickness spreads, these flowers begin to grow. Well, what color are the flowers? Of course, they're purple. Let's watch. There's the Order of St. Hubertus next to Gus, Sweet Tooth.
Those flowers show up every time the sick does. They're like a omen or something.
Doesn't look sick to me.
Those flowers show up every time the sick does.
So, the flowers show up, and now you're seeing how this all fits into the timeline of human history. The purple flowers, the last Earth age, right? Back here in the purple. Now, if you're confused about this rainbow timeline, we did a couple videos on it on the other channel. They're still there. But we looked at the rainbow and we overlaid it over the timeline of human history and decided we're back here in the purple. This is the purple rain. Okay? Completing the rainbow. And so the purple flowers, what do they represent? Now that we've talked a lot about this, well, it's the last Earth age and hybridism. The blue blood and the red blood make purple. It's the mixing of steel with watery clay. It's the mixing of iron needles with red clay humans. Adam makes purple. Wow. So, the beast. Now we understand who the beast is, the mark of the beast. The beast is the most cunning beast of the field, the serpent himself, as described by God in Genesis. Now, in this next scene, let's pull this up. Where are we? Why it does that? There it is. So, in this next scene, let's close this. This guy gets sick. They're at a dinner party, right? So, let's play a little bit of this. Okay, so this guy gets sick. He's at a dinner party. This guy is the doctor, and his wife has the sick, but nobody knows it. And he's been using a VC that has been harvested from the pineal gland of these hybrid children. And this is how he keeps his wife from getting symptoms, keeps her from her pinky, moving to give it away. But they're at this dinner party, and this other guy, he drops a bowl, and his pinky starts going, and this is how they handle people in the future who come down with the sick. They pin him down. They test him with a rapid test. The test turns purple, which is, metaphor for the purple flowers, the mixing of serpent and man. Then they wrap him in saran wrap and light the house on fire. There's the wife, she's sick. There's the doctor. They do the finger prick test. Now you understand what was it? What is her name? What is the, gosh, why am I drawing a blank with this? It's another nursery rhyme where she pricks her finger. Maleficent. Now you get what that means. The apple, she grabs the apple and her finger is pricked. It's always been about drawing blood and pricking things and sticking things in you. It's always been about that. Snow White. Pure blood. And the Maleficent wants to taint and infect the pure blood. So this guy's all nervous. He knows what's going to happen. He knows he's already sick. Whoa, and look at that. Look at that. See, sometimes I miss things in my own decodes. See the serpent wrapped around the pole right here? Now you know what that means. That's the tree. The purple. The serpent wrapping around the tree, trying to infect the tree. Do you get it now? This goes deep, you guys. He does the rapid test. It goes from yellow to purple. The guy's sick. They pin him down, and there are the purple flowers. Flowers are fruit. Things flower, right? So it's tainted fruit, which in the Bible is described as us being fruitful and filling the earth. The fruit of the womb. These are all biblical passages. So flowers, in effect, are like babies. It's like tainted humanity, tainted race.
Doesn't look sick to me.
Those flowers show up every time the sick does.
Hybrids are how.
So Gus, Sweet Tooth, and the big man end up running into a tribe of children who defend hybrids. They're kind of like a special teams force, but they're teenagers, basically. They run around saving hybrids from the leftover men on the earth who want to take them out. And these teens believe that the planet is better unpopulated. Now, this violates God's commandment to fill the earth. The problem with population is not man. The problem is the leader of man, which is the devil. He is the one that makes the things that pollute the earth. Yeah, we use it, but it's temptation, convenience. This is why I try to lead a minimalist lifestyle. I don't consume a bunch of things. I don't feel like I have to use things up. I try to preserve things. I try not to be wasteful, because every little bit you do goes against the enemy. He wants you to be a consumer. He wants you to open as many plastic bottles as you can. That's what he wants, because that pollutes the earth and ruins the earth. What if the enemy never made plastic bottles and all the things that ruin the earth? Then man would be forced to use natural and biodegradable things. Do you see how it's not us making? You and I are not running a plant that makes plastic bottles. It's the rich and the elite that are providing all these things as temptations to give to you so that you use them and ruin the earth. And then they turn around and blame it back on you. And that becomes their justification as to why they need to reduce the populations. Do you see how this works now? If we were in God's natural earth, everything we use would just be absorbed back into the earth. Wouldn't be a problem. So understand that all these things that are given to you to ruin the earth, these are forms of temptation to mock God, to justify to the enemy why he needs to reduce your population, you see. So listen to this dialogue here. Now this girl reminds me of, what's her name? The girl that was, how dare you? This is the how dare you girl right here, right? Listen.
Every time the sick does.
Hybrids are how the Earth survives. Before the virus, Earth was dying. Look. Did you know that before the virus came, the water wasn't blue? That's because they filled the water with trash. The Earth could start to heal. You can live without taking. You can keep the Earth alive.
Now, here's some in-your-face disclosure right here. I found this part at the end of episode 3. So we got a lot more to decode on this. We'll do that later in the week. I'll probably watch a couple more episodes today, capture some clips this afternoon, and then we'll do like a show like day after tomorrow on this. So this is his wife, and she realizes that they have to harvest hybrids in order to make the cure. Now this is doublespeak here, because what's really happening is the cure is actually what's making people sick in the series. She's basically getting hybrid cells into her body. That's the big joke. But it becomes the cure. So it's like they're telling you, watch.
Dr. Bell's notes were unequivocal. We need a living hybrid.
In specific combination with hybrid bone marrow stem cells, form unique secretions from the pineal gland of a living hybrid. In the secret sauce, as it were, of hybrid bone marrow stem cells, form the secret sauce, as it were, of our current antiviral treatment.
So what they said there, I had to dice this scene up as well. You got to be careful. You can't go over a certain amount of seconds with this stuff. Otherwise, you'll get a copyright, right? And then nobody sees it. So I try to be careful. But what she said there is you use bone marrow and the pineal, and it makes a secret sauce. And that becomes the cure. Right in your face. Right in your face. So why is the doctor listening to this recording? Well, the original doctor retired, and she left all her notes for him. And his wife needs the antidote because she got the sick, obviously. But as you heard, they need the secret sauce. So this doctor becomes conflicted between saving his wife's life and harming a hybrid. So he finally decides he's going to send out the call to bring in a hybrid to make the sauce. And he waits and waits and waits. But as the world begins to close in around him, as people begin to threaten him, and, then they find out that his wife's actually sick, and you know what happens. They'll burn you in a house and wrap you in cellophane. He just finally just gives in. So the signal to get the secret sauce, because he obviously is not going to go find a hybrid himself, is there's a flare gun with a purple flash. There it is right there. Secret sauce. He fires the flare gun. And what that does is it summons whoever it is out there, and I haven't got to that part yet, that will go and bring him a hybrid so he can make the secret sauce. Now, all of this is eerily reminiscent of, we're going to have to call it a crenodrome. This purplish pink. The secret sauce. What would they used to call it? Walnut sauce, right? Now, why would they put something this sick into a film like this? A children's film. This goes way beyond dropping hints of theories or gaslighting those who believe in these theories. This is sadistic and disturbing because children are watching this film. And yet, here are all the elements that many, many of us in this community have been talking about for years, all showing up in this film. Okay? This is disturbing. Now, this flare, G-U-N, I said the word, I'm probably going to have this, probably going to come after this video. This flare that he dispatches in the sky, it turns a purple color. I don't think I showed that clip in this, but it reminded me of the 4th of July. Now, I'm not saying something's going to happen on the 4th of July, but isn't that like Bo Jiven's like date of when everybody's supposed to, 70% of the people are supposed to get the sticker? Just really weird, right? Let's play the rest of this out. So everybody's talking about this, we're going to call it Feign of Gunction research and the Wu-Tang lab, and how Fraud Chi didn't tell us the truth about what he knew that the Wu-Tang lab was up to, or might have been up to. So what is Feign of Gunction research? Well, here it is right here. We're going to define this as we get into this show this Thursday morning. We're going to call Feign of Gunction, we're going to rename it FOG, F-O-G, FOG research, just so we can trip Al Gore's rhythms, right? So what is FOG research? Well, it's research that alters an organism or disease in a way that increases pathogenesis, transmissibility, or host range. In other words, making something unnatural in a lab. Now, this was banned in America. For those of you that are following FOG research, it was banned in America, outsourced to other countries, the Wu-Tang country in particular. And this was not a widely accepted theory that this was created in a lab as to how the Sharona escaped from the Wu-Tang lab. But now all of a sudden it's back in the mainstream. So you can imagine when I saw that the FOG research appeared as a main theme in the series Sweet Tooth, it caught my attention. So we did a part 1 decode on the first 3 episodes of Sweet Tooth a few days ago. So if you're a little bit lost, I'll try to catch you up, but definitely want to watch that part 1. This decode will be the second and final part. But let me give you a quick recap on the plot line of Sweet Tooth. Make sure you guys are with me, and we'll keep going with this as we check out this montage. Awesome. I think you guys are all here. Very good. All right. So what happens in Sweet Tooth? Well, there's this plague that comes over the earth, of course, right? That's why we're talking about this, because we're going through it right now. And about the same time that this plague overtakes the earth, every new baby that's born are all hybrid chimeras. They're half human and half animal. Now, Sweet Tooth, which is the story is based on him, is a half deer boy. And he leads this resistance to find his mother. Turns out, he finds out that his mother created him in a lab through FOG research. Now, he was the first, and then after that came all the other children that were born. Now, the series has yet to reveal how this all went down, how this FOG research ended up causing this sickness, or if it caused it at all, and how, I keep wanting to call him Bluetooth, how Sweet Tooth fits into all this. But I guess we're going to have to wait for season 2. Now, the bad guys in this series, they hunt and track down all these hybrids for research to try to find a cure. Let's get into these last episodes here. Now, in the part 1 decode, we found out that harvested pineals and bone marrow from hybrids are what is used to make the cure. The cure is called secret sauce. Watch.
Go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Singh. You have a delivery at the clinic?
Secret sauce.
And while wickedness crawled the land.
Now, You heard her say the secret sauce as a hybrid is like delivered to the clinic, and he's got to go pick it up to cure his wife who is sick. She has the sick. Now, what's the backstory with his doctor? Well, basically, his wife has the sick, and he's keeping it a secret from everybody, because if he doesn't, they do bad things to people who have the sick. And so he's trying to be an ethical doctor, but he realizes that he's going to have to carve out the pineal gland of this poor hybrid child to cure his wife. And he's struggling with it basically throughout the entire series. You guys, this is some sick stuff right here, because they're basically admitting everything we've been talking about. Now, if this was some other theory that we had talked about in our community that wasn't so dramatic and dark and evil, then you could say, okay, big deal. They're profiling theories in their work to make fun of us or to gaslight us. But this is dark. We're actually talking about human sacrifice here. Okay, and this isn't something you joke about, especially inside of a children's TV series. Lots of children are watching this, you guys. And this is how sick these people are. Let's keep watching.
And
Now, every time that the sick comes to a community, and they're not really sure exactly how it transmits, but every time it comes to a community, these creepy purple flowers appear. Based on all the research we've done, we determined that these purple flowers and the color purple represents the red and blue blood mixed together, the interbreeding of the two races, the beast and the man. But what I noticed here was the doctor's address, which is number 77.
Wickedness crawled the land. Happily ever after remains just out of reach for some.
Now, I often put together these trailers in advance for a couple of reasons. One, it helps summarize the clips in my mind, but also something else emerged out of the way that we run our channel. And that is that all of us together are way smarter than me. You guys actually cracked the code on a lot of this stuff that I bring forth. It's pretty amazing how God has blessed this channel to see on a spiritual realm and to not be deceived by the enemy. So, what is this number 77? Well, I read through your comments, and on this particular case, I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me. So I dug deeper. I prayed about it. I dug deeper. And this is what hit me this morning. I couldn't believe my eyes. 23 and me. And everybody will remember 7 and 7 is actually G and G, which has to do with genotypes. I'll never forget this. When I learned this in school, I think it was high school, and there was a big G and a little g. Do you guys remember that? And this was used to describe genotypes. So GG is 7-7. Let's read this here. 23andMe research. And of course, if you don't know about 23andMe, it is what I believe, a covert attempt at collecting as much DNA as they could, so that they're looking for something, or they're including our DNA in some kind of experiment, is what I believe is going on. Let me check in back in with you guys. Make sure we're up and running. It appears as though we are. Now, let's read about GG. It says 23andMe research participants we looked at who have an AG at around 35% have light eyes, 65% have dark eyes. So about 35% of customers with reports that state that they are likely to have dark eyes, they actually have light colored eyes. But for some genotypes, the prediction is much stronger. For example, someone with a GG genotype has a 97% chance of having light eyes. Still not 100%, but much more likely. So what's the takeaway here? The takeaway is this is all about genotypes and genetics. And in this case, they're talking about eye color. And so this is what I believe they were getting at with this scene here. Now, let's keep going with this because there's so much more. You know, these little Easter eggs that literally nobody else finds. I believe these are inspired revelations. It reminds me of Janus and Jambres in the Pharaoh's court, fighting Aaron and Moses. And by the way, something else hit me when the Israelites were in the wilderness and they began worshiping the golden calf. And they were punished with a snake and a staff, which that represents the blue bloods, by the way. But something else hit me this morning. The snake on the staff was God reminding them of the staffs that turned into snakes back in Egypt. And all of this has to do with healing. Remember, they had to stare at it to be healed, but it was a punishment. Who will you believe can heal you? The Most High? Or the Egyptians, magicians? So back to this. So what would happen is there's basically a witch hunt. And when the community, they would run around looking for people that were coming down with the sick. And there was this signature twitching pinky finger. And that's what gave it away. Couldn't hide from it, right? So they would rapid test somebody. And then their result would come back purple, just like the flowers. And then what they would do is they would wrap them in cellophane and burn their house down with them inside of it. Now, in this scene, Sweet Tooth, his name is Gus, which Gus backwards is S-U-G, of course, which is the first three letters of sugar, which is probably why they call him Sweet Tooth. He hops on a train to get to Colorado to find his mother. And in the train is toilet paper mockery, mocking us all about the toilet paper shortage. Hold on, just got somebody sent me something saying they don't know where I'm at. Some people are still on the other channel, you guys. So whatever you can do to help people find us. I guess this is the end of the week. We're not going to be here on this channel next week. But for some reason, people on the main channel are having a hard time figuring out what's going on with where we're at right now and where we've been for the last week. I tried to give a lot of announcements so that people could see what was going on, but some people are always going to slip through the cracks. So, and I may re-upload all of this week's videos back on the main channel once we get it back as time goes on, because I don't want anyone to miss the information, because then you'll be behind. So let's get back into this. So look at the toilet paper mockery. Now, the clue here, okay, because you always got to read between the lines of this stuff, is that this train is headed to a military compound of the evil generals that run the world, that are willing to do whatever it takes to run any kind of experiments they want, harvest pineal glands and all this other stuff to find a cure, which is pretty much what's happening right now. And it begs the question, was this shortage that we've been going through because the toilet paper was being diverted to government facilities or underground bases? Are they preparing for something? Are they hoarding toilet paper, knowing that they're going to need it underground, right? Remember we saw the whole toilet paper meme in the Tesla video game that we decoded? Remember that? Here it is right here. The video game was called Close to the Sun. And they were stockpiling, and again, this was all about another spamdemic. They're on this ghost ship and everybody's wiped out and they have to figure out what happened. More foreshadowing of what was to come. And they were stockpiling toilet paper. It was in huge amounts of crates. So this is getting very creepy, you guys. Now, just before the spamdemic broke, we had decrypted the iconic scene in iPad Go 2 where the child is inside the egg. We told you how this was the method that they used to culture VCs. Watch. And now, the very same thing we decoded before the spamdemic ever started appears in Sweet Tooth as they're doing these experiments on the eggs. So here's the iconic scene. Again, we were called crazy. That has nothing to do with that, Casey. You're stretching stuff. Well, here it is. This is how they culture them. Watch this. You can see the serpent coming out of the back of the egg. Now, they call this candling, and they can look inside to make sure that the injection of whatever they're using to culture is inside of there, that it made it in there, that it's actually growing, so they candle it. But this is how they make them. Now, not all VCs are made this way, but past VCs have been. And I think at least one of the current VCs is made this way. I think. So, this is weird. So, in other words, iPad Go 2 predicted everything we're going through right now. Look at the evil demonic eye behind it. The serpent wrapped around the egg. This is the Orphic egg and so much more. But that's a whole nother show. We already covered all that in the past. That's why you got to always watch every video, because this stuff builds. It builds. We're decoding the matrix. We're figuring out what these people are up to. I think we even talked about these fingers looking like the Washington Monument. Let's keep watching. Now, you're going to hear her talk about culturing in chicken eggs. You're going to hear her talk about fog research. Remember, Fane of Gunction is fog. You have to say it that way, because I don't know what YouTube's going to do. Because Al Gore can't seem to find his rhythm.
Mm-hmm. What is with those damn chickens?
They're part of this project that I've been working on. And then if we incubate just the right ones, then we grow vaccines.
Let me make sure we're up here with you guys. You guys there? Any problems? I'm just going to read through the chat real quick, make sure there's nothing wrong. Okay. Yes, Mork came in an egg. Yes, Maylin. We decoded Mork Mini. It was one of the very first decodes we did in like 2012. I don't know where that video is now, but it was crazy.
And we save a lot of lives.
So then you test the vaccines on the chickens?
No, we need their eggs. So we inject the eggs with the microbes, mostly viruses.
Okay, and what happens if you inject the wrong ones?
All hell breaks loose.
Last call, everyone.
We accidentally made a miracle. And created this.
So, there's Sweet Tooth. There's his mom and his dad, but they're really not his mom and his dad. They're just his, like, adopted parents, right? Because she made him in the lab. The dad had to raise him. And lo and behold, I found another Easter egg. There's always the smiley face. The smiley face strikes again. Now, in this instance, it's inside of this ultrasound readout, but everyone would agree that is a smiley face. And we know what this smiley face means. It's bad.
I have to go back.
Are you?
I need to go back. I need to get all of my research, and I need to burn the place down, because that research and what we've been doing in there in the wrong hands will kill millions of people.
Now, I want you to listen and watch as she describes their genetic experiments. She's using a pretzel. Watch.
What do you know about microbes? Some of them make us sick. That's what we make vaccines from. And some of them make us better. I looked all over the world for one that no one even knew existed. And then if we incubate just the right ones, then we grow vaccines. So we inject the eggs with the microbes, mostly viruses. Just the right one existed. And then
So she's holding a pretzel. So I Google searched pretzels and genetics, and look what I found. Integrating past, present, and future wheat research with pretzels. So what is this article about? Well, they're mapping the genome of the grain wheat, and they're looking at the genes, and they're using this program called Pretzel. And it has something to do with looking at loops and feedbacks and comparing data. And you can actually see why they might have named it Pretzel, because this is how they track this genome project. And all this is more hybridization, more hybrid talk, right? Because wheat is a hybrid. So they know what's going on. Now, these are little Easter eggs that no one else would really think to look at. But when you see her holding a pretzel, know that it means something. Let's keep going with this.
all over the world for one that no one even knew existed. And then if we incubate just the right ones, then we grow vaccines. So we inject the eggs with the microbes, mostly viruses.
Yeah, but why do you think they did it?
Why did they make a deer kid baby in a lab? To see if they could.
I've spent my entire life thinking hybrids were a miracle of nature. Does Fort Smith sound familiar to you?
I was gonna ask you the same thing. They closed it when the virus began to spread.
Rumor was it was where the virus first started.
Now, I turned the volume up because I wasn't sure if you guys could hear that clearly. But she says, why would they make a deer kid boy baby? And he said, because they could. More fog research, right? Now, let's look at this key here, because we did a lot of research on this key. We saw this in several films associated with plague. We exposed this key symbolism. We discovered that Janus has a key. And Janus was the god of gates, opening and closing in times of war and peace. And Janus was the two-faced god of beginnings and endings. He was like an alpha and omega god. And we discovered that Janus, which is also syncretized with Gemini, was probably dump the president. Well, why would we say that? Well, we went through a gateway. We went through a portal when he developed a VC in plain sight that would be forced upon the world. We told you last year that they would force this on every single man, woman, and child. Nobody believed us because people are so wrapped up in the right-left paradigm, him versus the left versus him, and they refused to see it. They believed in a man, and they thought that their savior, Dump, would give them a choice. They couldn't imagine a world, a country, a divided America where they would be shamed for not receiving it. In other words, people fed into their egos and belief in a man rather than God, and allowed the very abomination to be created. And now here we are. It's being used upon us. So, the shocking thing about this scene that you're going to see next is that Sweet Tooth becomes Saint Hubertus. Who is Saint Hubertus? Well, let me put this back in here because it's messing me up. Who is Saint Hubertus? This is him right here. St. Hubertus key. Can you see that St. Hubertus on the left looks a lot like how Sweet Tooth is depicted with the firing flame on the right? They did this on purpose. Now, St. Hubertus has a key, as I just said. What is up with this key? Well, St. Hubertus had a key, and it was actually closer to what you might describe as a nail. Now, here's where things get dicey and weird and crazy. This is St. Hubertus' key right here. What comes to mind is a crucifixion nail. And what St. Hubertus would do is he would heat up this key, this nail, in a fire, and he would cauterize animal bites on people's skin. And he would do this to cure rabies. Now think about this for a second. Think about the spiritual level on this. Animal and man mixed together. That's what rabies is. It's man acting like an animal. It's on a DNA level. And rabies, of course, is the famed source of the zombie apocalypse. Men turning into animals. So, Sweet Tooth receives this key to an attic. And I believe this is like symbolizes a gate on a spiritual level, just like Janus. The method of combining man with beast. The key to the bottomless pit. Watch.
Thanks. What's it for?
It's for the attic.
Now, there's a subplot going on in the series too, where this woman establishes a sanctuary for hunted hybrids, and she does it at a zoo. And she sends out this radio signal, which has all the hallmarks of 5G Whiz, of course. We'll remember that there was also a radio signal theme in the zombie films like I Am Legend with Will Smith. He used a radio to call out to people to gather them around him, right? Well, here is the radio signal again, and it calls out to Sweet Tooth, and he has a very heightened sense of hearing. He hears the signal, which is in this downed aircraft, but the signal ends up being a trap of sorts, and it gets him captured, and it gets his friends hurt. And in fact, everything that Sweet Tooth does seems to endanger his friends. He's careless, he's selfish, all he cares about is finding his mother, and he walks them into trap after trap. Yet, his friends fight for him because of his passion to want to find his origins. Is all this starting to sink in yet? So, Sweet Tooth becomes basically like the devil. Now, we looked at the Cernunnos and Pan aspects to him in part 1 decode that we did. But let's get to this lady on the flyer. Now, she was on to the doctor and his sick wife. She's like a, she pretty much knew that the wife was sick. She was very nosy. And she ends up calling them out, threatening to expose them. And as she's walking away to go tell everyone so that they can wrap them in cellophane and light them on fire, their horse kicks her and knocks her out and takes her out. She's gone. So the people in the neighborhood are looking for her. They're like, where is she? So they send out these flyers. Now, of all of the heights that they could put on her, this woman is not 5'7". She's like 5'3" or 5'4". But yet they put on here 5'7". What do you think that means? 5 gee whiz, of course. So they, in this next scene, they airdrop these flyers by sanctuary, so that people can find the sanctuary. They airdrop these flyers so that the hybrids can find their way to the sanctuary, all the survivors. But then the sanctuary also ends up being a trap because they're all gathered together, and then the bad men, they call them the last men, the general finds them, and it's easy pickings because they're all in one spot. Look at how prominent the radio frequency part of the flyer is. There's a reason for that. Okay? Because this is all about a signal of some kind. Now the frequency, now I wasn't able to decrypt what this number on the frequency actually means, but that's the frequency, okay? 28.3550. So now that we got all these eyes looking at this, let me know what you think that this frequency could mean, this radio frequency. Does it have something to do with Saturn? Does it have something to do with, there's a million different things that this could be. Okay, I don't know. I hadn't quite decrypted that yet, but there you go. Now what you're going to see next is all of these ape appearances or monkeys. You're going to see it 3 separate times in proximity to this lady that runs the sanctuary. And what this is, it's a direct reference to the planet of the apes and all the work we did on that. And what was that about? Well, during polio, the stickers that they gave out to everybody were tainted with simian virus. It got a lot of people sick. Some claimed that it had caused other much more serious conditions. These were the claims at the time. Now all that's up for debate now, but that's what was said during that time in the 1960s. It was an actual simian meaning monkey, sickness that came out of tainted stickers. And in fact, many of these older VCs were made from animals, sheeps. Actually, the old rabies sticker was actually made from sheep brains. Can you see a problem with that? Isn't that where you can get prions and stuff from the brains of cattle and sheep? Others were manufactured out of monkey kidneys. And, of course, chickens, as we just showed you. And I'm wondering if this will be the catalyst that mixes man with beast. There's monkey 1.
Hours became days. Days became weeks. Amy became a prisoner. Ah, sweet solitude. That's all Amy Eden thought she wanted.
Monkey number 2.
Nature doesn't want us back.
We never gave her a good
Monkey number 3.
reason to keep us around in the first.
Now, this is Mother Amy, and she tries to repel this evil general with these 4th of July fireworks. Well, 4th of July is coming up very quickly. 7/4. And on that date, Bo Jiven wants 70% of us to get stickers by then, right? Now, of course, they've been hinting at 4th of July for a very, very long time. Now, we decrypted what July 4th means, or 4-7 or 7-4. It is the middle generations of human history. It's the 2,000-year period that covered 42 generations from Abraham to Jesus. And the average generation, you do the simple math, is 47 years. 42 generations, 2,000 years, yields 47-year average generation. So, what does 47 really mean? It represents the midpoint, or the halfway point. Okay? Well, Casey, that's a stretch. So why was Building 7 of the Center of Trade opened at the halfway point in the Heb calendar of the year 47, and it was 47 stories tall, and it was opened in the 14th year, and then 14 years later they all came down? It's the midpoint. That's what 47 means. That was just one example proving the midpoint of that number. Now, it's interesting too that the 4th of July falls at almost exactly the halfway point through the year. I think July 2nd is the exact halfway point, but we could all agree that the 4th of July falls almost exactly halfway through the year. Now, you're probably in shock about these revelations, but understand this does not come from me. These are gifts of the Holy Spirit. God wants you to see on the spiritual level so that you're not deceived. So that you don't believe the official story about what happened on Blind 11, because I just spelled out to you what happened. That something very dark happened on a spiritual level to mock the Most High and His Son. But God shall not be mocked. And we're proving that today because we've exposed them. They're the ones getting mocked now because we're exposing what they did based on a spiritual eyes to see. This is why this stuff is so important to understand and learn. If you just want to ignore this and think it's not important, you're allowing the mockery to happen. When you expose darkness, you unmock the mockery. Does that make sense? Now, before I get into the chat, because that's pretty much close to the end of this, let's play this out because you're going to see her launch some fireworks off here.
First place.
Remember iPetco 2? There you go. And these posters say combat the sick, and it's all eyes. Eyes are portals. They're making sense now? Gates, portals. We've gone through some kind of portal, and I was telling you guys this the day that Dump announced warp speed. I go, you guys, we're warping through a portal. Something is going to change. And here we are in a new world, the new normal. We have passed through a portal. Things will never, ever be the same. But hallelujah, because that means the end is closer